good. Okay, Warren Drop, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, I firmly believe in the decentralization of our nation, as it's probably our nation's greatest strength. It's Now Doc did hit on something that I am fairly personal to, and that is how there are some inactive territories within our nation. They tend to be much smaller, and that's actually somewhere I believe that we can improve on in bringing those smaller territories together to make larger units. Because as we've seen with some of our bigger members, the Kyradian Union, Voldy, and even to some degree Soderreich, they are much larger entities than one city. That tends to be successful, but the overall federation, I think, needs to be decentralized, as many of these groups simply cannot agree, and it keeps the peace between all of us. That's all I have to say.
Very true. It appears, yeah, you can answer for this. I'm not sure what happened here. I'll be back soon. Yes, would you like to answer as the Vice Chancellor of Kansas?
Yeah, so I can say reasonably confidently that our campaign supports the sort of same consolidation. It's really unreasonable that we have so many territories where there's nobody to even act as caretaker, let alone an active population. And giving them to either already existing states or encouraging them to consolidate with their neighbors would be the best policy prescription.
All right, that sounds good. Let's move on to another question here. This is from Pandastical. What are your thoughts on a business investment act of some kind that would use government funds to sponsor and incentivize private business in the Imperial Federation? It looks like Jaw would like to answer this question.
Right. So I have a little bit of a connection to this. So I had actually drafted a bill. DMQNU would have seen this. I believe it was called the Most Favored Businesses Act, Most Favored Producers Act. And the fundamental concept was you take these businesses and you say, if you want to run a product line at a deficit, the federal government will cover your deficit so long as you limit the sales to IF citizens. Unfortunately, the bill had failed in both iterations, one in February and one about 6 months ago. And I support this purely because one of the things in the IF is there's a lot of IF citizens who don't have a lot of money, and there's a lot of IF citizens who would be capable of running businesses, but it's hard to compete, and it's hard to buy goods that are so expensive. So if the IF federal government could step in and act as a source of capital, it would lower prices and it would increase IF business competitiveness.
Very true.
Also, currently, with my tool loan program, citizens are able to apply for a 4-day loan that they could use to acquire the diamonds that they need to be able to pay the loan off, but also they could use that time to also gain additional resources for their business. So that way, the government, aka any business that is cooperating with the government to help fund this program, is benefiting from the productivity coming from the citizens, but also the citizen is able to use these funds that they're getting from their own productivity to be able to invest into their own business. I believe that through this system that we can guarantee that these funds that go into these citizens are actually being used instead of just being a drop in the bucket.
All right, and that was Volution speaking for those who aren't aware. Would either of you like to answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
I would first if Warren is already.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so this topic is a bit more close to my heart as I do run a business. But I feel that I strongly believe in the free market, and I believe that that the federal government should not step in to give favors or subsidies to these businesses at all, as this would discourage and leverage, or this would leverage companies above other companies, giving certain companies a monopoly over others. And I feel that if we're going to talk about government funding into business, we should be talking about government making their own business to support the government itself.
All right. Warren, would you like to answer that?
Largely the part about the federal government staying out of business is, I agree with Doc on that, for surprisingly. I don't think the federal government should be involved in business too much. There's some places where it needs to regulate and make sure people are acting as honest actors, but that's beyond the point of this current question.
All right.
But economically, we have seen, at least in Voldy, we've seen great success with economic progress, especially with a recent business that has moved in. The new Vaughn Inc. has already made a few hundred dimmies in less than a week of operation. So it's not that there isn't a lack of capital being thrown around, especially in richer states. So I don't really think that we need the federal government to step in. It's just that people are targeting the wrong markets. They're not targeting the right people, and businesses are failing because of just the natural market forces. But in the areas where people target correctly, they have seen success. I don't think that needs to be discouraged, and we need to basically just let the market act as it will, because it will correct for itself.
All right, Joel, would you like to respond to those comments? Do it quickly, so it seems like you wanted to respond.
As Warren Drop said, like there is no problem with there not being enough capital, but the thing is, you know, when you're selling a good as a business, you can only sell it for a profit, or else you're going to run out of money, right? And that means there is inherent price floors.
That is entirely true.
Sorry, there are inherent, there are inherent price floors everywhere. And one of the solutions you could offer is if the federal government pays companies to run certain product lines at a loss for extra competitiveness. Another thing I would like to say is that this is not an ideological debate. There's no reason, you know, the free market, whatever. It's whether or not the cat catches the mouse. And if you have subsidies, you're going to inherently boost your domestic companies. Forget the fairness of it. It's just you're going to boost your companies and it's going to work.
Right.
And then, now there's one thing I did forget to say in that. It's that the federal government is infamously just lacking money. It's an unfortunate problem that I saw during my time as vice chancellor under Asgear. The government just doesn't have that much money to work with.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a quick question about that, since this is something some people have asked. There's no question about it, but I will ask it. What are your thoughts on, because this has been a big discussion, what are your thoughts on possibly some amendment to allow for the federal government to collect taxes? Would you be in favor of that or opposed? Doc, yes, you can answer.
I believe with regard to taxes, we should do them in. I'm not saying we should do taxes because of friends. If we're going to tax people, we should probably enact a tax for people who have played more than at least 5 months, so that we know they have enough capital that they could pay. But I feel that taxes shouldn't apply to the citizens, and we should more push for making a government-owned business that will make resource, basically an exchange or something like Pavia has, where they have the Monument Bank or the Monument Group. We could create something like that. Not saying that we should create a bank, but we should create a government-owned business that creates its own resources that we can sell to other nations, kind of like the exchange we have at Coordinate 00.
All right. Would either of you two like to respond to that?
I will.
No.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that we really need taxes here in the Imperial Federation, but if we did implement taxes, the only thing I would tax is player essence. Most players here probably don't use their player essence, so you're not really missing that much. But But otherwise, you won't see any taxes under devolution administration because taxes are evil.
All right, Warren, would you like to say anything?
Now, taxes are definitely a difficult subject because there's a wide discrepancy within not only the IF but some individual states on just the amount of income they bring in. Now, I know damn well that I am very much capable of paying just about any tax that ever would come out of the Senate. That's just because I've grinded my ass off and I worked to put into motion, literally just wealth. The only type of tax I would even consider supporting is Senate tax, so on the amount of senators that are sent toward the Senate. I've talked multiple times in there about a 15 dimmy tax per senator, which, if my math is correct, would give the Senate around 300-ish per month to work with, which is fairly considerable if it's built up over time and over even just the course of the Asgir administration would net the IF about 900 dimmies. I think it's important that we do need to start building capital within the IF so we can actually start funding, say, the company that others wish the federal government could run. The big problem with that is that the IF, again, does not have the money in the federal government to really work that. It currently works off donations, which is the biggest problem.
All right, thank you for that.
Yep.
And as speaking of infrastructure, which we just talked about funding, do you have any specific plans for infrastructure? Possibly continue the infrastructure plans of the current administration, and if so, how do you plan on getting those built and funding them? Yes, Volution and Jaw.
So currently, something that was notified of us was that Banana Blue wants his bunker completed, and I have, John and I have notified him that we will be completing or funding that bunker for him with the funds that have already been allocated towards that infrastructure. But we will not be making any additional military infrastructure. We do not believe that those funds will be useful placed in military infrastructure under our term. Jaw, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so in terms of civilian infrastructure, citizen, whatever you want to call it, one of the parts of our program is expansion of the IF rail to create offshoots strictly to farms. Now, this is part of a wider economic plan of Volution centered around an EXP-based economy. And what this would solve is it would be revenue. Because right now, in terms of XP, the IF's production is reliant entirely on some 4 or 5 incredibly dedicated citizens. And that's wonderful. It's good that they're working, but it's not enough, right? Because we've all seen the IF treasury and it's not a pleasant sight most of the time. And the reason why this will help is because as you make it easier to go get XP, right? You know, all you do is /dest farm name, and you go to the farm and you farm it. That means it's easier to get newer, less experienced, or less motivated players to get a part of the XP economy. Get them going to the exchange, get them mining, get them farming.
And there's a lot of lazy citizens, and just being able to type /dest like sugarcane, like people will use that benefit of convenience to be able to make themselves some money.
All right. Would either of you two like to answer?
What was that?
Would either of you like to talk about infrastructure?
Yes.
Okay.
I know personally, infrastructure was a big part of mine and Asgear's first term. We got so much done because I was able to fund everything. I will continue to do such as I did it in the first term there, out of my own personal pocket. There will be no money taken from the Treasury to develop new stuff as the demand has appeared. I believe, as most of you know, I've been mostly focusing on my home state for the past few months, so I'm not completely aware of the needs of the current Department of Infrastructure, but I'll be meeting with Asgear pretty much day one to figure that out. And figure out what needs money, and I'll be throwing money at it to get it done as fast as possible. just as I did with the Pavia line.
All right. Would you like to respond to that?
So with infrastructure, I feel that the Imperial Federation we have been lacking in infrastructure a bit, I feel, but we've been investing in the right parts of infrastructure for what we need, but we also have been neglecting some parts that we shouldn't be neglecting. So with Asgir and his work on the rail lines, I commend him for it. He's done an amazing job at it. I got to be in his presence to help him build one of those rails recently. But oh frig. I feel that we should be investing a bit into some stuff. That's gonna be the end for me right now. I'm gonna fix something here.
Okay. So we'll move on to the. Oh my goodness gracious. Anyways. We were just talking about infrastructure. Yeah, the department. So who would your picks be for certain department heads, such as defense, infrastructure, build, economy, and/or culture? Any thoughts on that?
So my picks are going to be the people who actually apply. So you're going to have to. But so far, Asgear has stated that he wanted to be Minister of Infrastructure, and Sloth has stated that he wants to be Minister of Defense still, I believe. So those two will be in those positions. But for everyone else, I don't know. You gotta apply. So if you want a job, you gotta apply.
All right. Oh, and just to let everyone know, we'll do 2 more previous questions, and then we'll move on to audience questions after that. Either of you two have department head choices?
At least with ministries, I don't really see much of a reason to change the vast majority of them. The only one I'm looking at is economy, because I think Red Snapper kind of just dived off a cliff. I don't know where he's been. He's been kind of MIA for the past few days. So I at least don't know what's going on with him. And that's the only one I really question. The rest of the departments, I think, are running fairly fine, at least with their current configuration.
All right. And Doc, do you have an answer to that?
Question quick?
Who are your choices for certain department heads? Defense, infrastructure, any of those builds?
Oh, my choices for... Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a long explanation, sorry, but this part here really I do feel needs to be done a bit better than we have been. So, if I were to pick someone as the head of defense, I would probably stay with Sloth. For the head of infrastructure, I would choose Asgir, because he has been doing a tremendous job with infrastructure recently. For the head of builds, I would probably pick Warren, because Warren is an amazing builder. He excels at it. Head of economy would probably, I feel, it would probably be either you, Jimkin, or because you're great with numbers, as I've seen, or I would probably pick Volution over here because he is really good with economy. For the head of culture, it would probably either stay the same with Sunahama's greatest defender, or I would choose Dr. Urzort. And I feel that I would create a brand new department that would handle new friend recruitment and helping states recruit new friends, and more about that maybe later. But I would probably pick Urzort probably for that either as well, because he's really good with new friend recruiting.
All right. Let's do 2 more previously asked questions, and we'll move to audience questions. So this is just generally about foreign affairs, diplomacy, international relations. And if I could ask you to remove yourself from the debate stage, sir. Thank you. We're getting a little crowded here. I see how it is. So let's talk about foreign affairs. What do you think about our current alliances, specifically with some other southern nations and the alliances we just signed? Do you think they're a good idea? Should we have more allies, less allies? What do you think? Yes, Doc. What do you think about that?
So foreign alliances so far, I feel that we're actually doing really well. I feel like we could create a better treaty, I feel, with Pavia right now. I feel like we could have a bit better of a relationship with them. Not to say we don't have a good relationship. I feel we could have better. I also feel that with smaller
What would
nations,
that relationship look like?
the relationship, it would probably look more like we would see a bit more of Pavea. I feel like we'd see a bit more of Pavea businesses and stuff here too, but I also feel that with a strong enough, my Vice Chancellor Crocky right now is working on a full documentation on that we're going to be releasing soon. But that should help the Imperial Federation get a bit more revenue and income without sacrificing the free market any. And it should help us to have a bit more money to invest right back into infrastructure.
So currently Pavia does have a shop.
Yes, I do know about that. I'm talking about more of seeing a bit more spread out.
Would you ask them to stock it?
Probably a bit more of a stock, yes, because currently when you go there, as many have probably noticed, it's usually sold out or not stocked. But also, I feel we should also be making them not just have a central bank branch in New Callisto, but I feel like we should also have ones that are more near to faraway states, like the Caridian Union should probably have a small branch as well with one or two bank tellers, so that people won't have to go the length it is to get to New Callisto. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the Pavea relationship. But also, when it comes to the smaller or more growing nations near the Imperial Federation, I feel like we should probably, when this kind of ties to defense as well, but I feel like we should be investing a bit more money to gear up and to have more people in our military or better fortify our borders so that we can better handle the situation for if one of these new friend nations or a larger nation decides to come and attack us, which probably won't happen, let's be honest. But we should still be prepared for if we really need this. And we should have a military to generally take care of instead of releasing Pearl on site lists, we should have a military that can hunt these people down instead of a bounty. Instead of having to release a bounty, we should have a military that should be able to hunt these people down whenever we need them to.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, sir. Please refrain from releasing commentary. Thank you. Okay, any of you two want to answer that quickly?
I'll let Volution goes first if they have
Okay.
anything.
I'm sorry, I don't even remember the question.
It was
just
about
just about
diplomacy, but somehow we got onto economics again.
Oh, all right. So I just want to maintain the status quo. I think the alliances that we have are pretty new. I feel like we just need to, just work on those and make sure that those are solid. Make sure that these alliances work for us. Make sure it works for our allies. So I'm not going to be adding anything new to our foreign policy agenda other than has already existed.
Okay. Any comments?
Largely, my foreign policy will mirror that of the previous Asgear administration. There isn't really much departure, but at least from what I have noticed, our international reputation is quite poor, and we get the general look of, oh, what's the right word? We tend to
I
look
mean, our
self-righteous.
reputation is just that we're poor. Like it's
That-
just that's
that is
that's our
entirely true.
reputation.
But we have a generally poor reputation where it seems like we're trying to butt into conversations, and I really want to take a more step back and watch. Like, we don't get involved. Generally, we keep to ourselves type stuff.
Alrighty.
I don't
Let's
see any off the boat on current alliances. Those are fine as they stand.
let's take some audience questions for a few minutes. Anyone in the audience want to say anything? Oh, Pandastical, yes, you have a question. Do you want me to move? Let me move you. Do you have a microphone? Or do you want to just type? I'll wait. No, you're not. Let me move you. See how I do this.
Hooray for candidate first.
Invite to speak. How about that? Pandastical can go first. Let's see.
Wait,
Okay. Oh, the question. Okay.
Yeah, he sent a question, are any of the candidates furries? Yes, I am one.
Okay.
yes, I
Okay.
am I used to be a furry. Oh, I'm not anymore.
Okay. We had a question in the Discord. Let's see. Someone asked. Monster asked, "What are your thoughts on Icenia?" Anyone want to answer that?
Yes. What was it talking about?
Yes, Warren drop. What's your?
Oh, sorry, I was looking off, but
Oh, okay.
really, that does go back into diplomacy, which, again, I really don't think we need to really expand our current diplomatic horizons, more focus on our diplomatic reputation, which is better. We can kind of set like this. So, again, taking a more laid-back approach to diplomacy, I think, is the better option here.
Anyone else? Not much to say. Let's bring in real Michael. He said he had a question. Invite to speak. Okay.
Yeah. So what?
Hello.
Yep.
All we got
Sorry.
from that was what?
What qualities do you have uniquely that enable you to be a better chancellor that everybody else on stage tonight doesn't have?
Good question. Let's see.
I'll go with that one first. I've got a fairly unique repertoire coming from Stoneworks originally and running my nation there for 2.5 years. I'm at least familiar with how diplomacy works. I'm familiar with how leadership works. I've led armies before into combat. This is something I have done before. It's not something I'm a noob at.
All right. Either of you have a response to that? Oh yes, Doc.
So I do have some experience with diplomacy already. I lead Malgate. That's not really much of my diplomacy orientation, as I'm more familiar with what it takes to run financially a small nation, which I have learned under Malgate as I've had to bring out some stuff. But when it comes to diplomacy and being a leader, I've had previous Civ experience before Civ MC, and I used to lead small nation stuff, and I have led them into combat and stuff every once in a while. Kind of not as probably to the scale as Warren has, but I do have experience leading. I am a political major in college, so I do know some more real life politics stuff that I could probably maybe apply in some ways to Civ MC, like diplomacy and stuff. But other than that, I can't really formulate much more than that. I'm sorry, getting tired.
Okay. Evolution or Jaw. Anything to say about that?
So I'm not going to be ruling this country like a general like these other two. I'm actually the only one here that has with comprehensive economic plan that you could follow along and see exactly what we're gonna do. I don't see any of that from these other two. That's all I have to say.
Oh, that is some hard words right there, if I've ever heard it.
Well, would you like to respond to that statement?
5 years in office in total now. Through times of war and times of peace, I've led. And yet you say I'm going to rule as a general. That's all I have to say.
All right. Oh, we have a question from Banana Blue in the debate stage here, which I just found out. Which is, what are the candidates' thoughts on forced democratization of states? Yes, MC Doctor.
No, we shouldn't be forcing total democracy on states, but we should be forcing the semi-democratic process that we already have in the Senate and the federal government. We should be making it so that smaller states, territories, and nations shouldn't be able to develop their own just go and create entirely different group, join entirely different political system. We should not be a full democracy, as that brings chaos. That's what true democracy is. We should be forming semi-democracy, which we already are, and we should continue that path and not force total democratization of smaller states. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments on that?
Just simply put.
So this is hyperbolized rhetoric. Like we're not forcing anything upon anyone. We come from a state that is democratic, and so we represent democratic values. So we are going to obviously promote that people would hopefully be democratic, but under our chancellorship, you will not see anything being forced upon anyone, and we do not have this authority to do so. The Senate has the authority to implement laws, and actually, it doesn't even have the authority to even tell states what to do, really. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Do you have anything to say, Joel?
Yeah. So there's nothing in any of our stated plans that is the IF government is going to swing its power around that it doesn't have, like a hammer to make states democratic. It's just not a thing. Once again, we come from the Caribbean Union. It's a democratic state. We like that stuff, but we recognize that states have both the right morally organize themselves as they wish, and there's practical benefits to different organization structures.
All right. Warren, drop anything to say?
Just simply put, leave the states alone. I can't stress this enough. Leave them alone.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with you.
Do not fuck with the states.
No.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question from Xenos here in chat. What do you think about the abandoned IF cities, the old cities made a long time ago, the old territories, and what should be done about them?
Oh, like Imperial?
Any town like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Doc. Doc can go first. He hits the lever.
Yeah, so if we're talking about abandoned cities in the IF or the Imperial Federation, we should, if we don't have plans to use them anymore, we should dismantle them for resources and use those resources for better things. We can sell them, we can use them to build other projects, or we can clear out that land for a new project, but we shouldn't have rotting corpses of fucking old cities that are there. They shouldn't be there anymore, unless if we're talking about a national park like North Venezuela or Andorlando.
All right. Any more drop? You have your lever pressed. Any comments on that?
Really, the abandoned cities don't matter. We don't need to mess with them. Someone might eventually come along and want to restore them, but it would just be a waste of time and effort on the part of the federal government in very little return. It would be such a tremendous cost.
All right. Evolution, Joe, anything to say about that?
So I'm not going to be demolishing a whole bunch of cities that help make our landscape look more populated than it already is. I feel like by getting rid of these cities helps make the IF look more like a crayon claim. I'm not going to be demolishing any cities. Plus, this is easy stuff that we can move random new friends into if we get a random ambitious new friend that wants to, oh, I want to make my own town. Oh, okay, cool. We got a free town for you to have. And we just give it to him. I mean, it's that simple. Joe, do you have anything to say?
I would like bicep out of my seat. I like that seat. Alright, no, I've got nothing.
Bicep can say anything. I'd like to respond to Warren's comment.
Yep, go ahead.
So, Warren, I do agree that it would be a waste of time. Definitely a waste of time on the federal government's hands to demolish these cities. I am talking not about the cities that are definitely able to be covered. I'm talking about the cities that are laying and raided and looted and destroyed and obby-bombed, or just don't have any significance, or in name layers that no one has permission for anymore, or couldn't just be restored. I'm talking about those places that if the time comes, we should destroy those cities for expansion. By say we probably should leave them until the time does come. I'm just saying cities that we can't recover should be destroyed if need be.
Fuck, I've been around the IF and I haven't really seen any cities like that. I think the only one that's even close is Imperial if we don't have the name layer, but it's still in a weird spot.
All right. Any other questions? We have time for two more questions. If anyone wants to say something. Oh, actually, I did see one up here. It was Soft Kitten has a question. Yeah, you can just ask it in chat, or I can bring you in. Oh, okay, that's a very important question. We'll skip that question. There was another question in the questions chat, which was, what are your thoughts on the Imperial Federation being called a crayon claim by some people? Is our size too big, or should we keep expanding more? Should we keep the same size? Anything with that? Yes, Doc.
We are not a fucking claim. We should not be called a crayon claim. If anyone who comes into our territory and defaces us or defames us or decides to say that we are not a good nation should not be allowed to just, if they're not doing anything important, should not be in our nation at all. If they're just going to say that we're a crayon claim. But also, I do feel we should probably expand more into the place that we have, not to say expand our borders by taking over smaller new front claims. We should probably be building more and expanding our current cities in their states before considering expanding our actual borders, unless we absolutely need to expand our borders.
The question was about us being perceived as a crayon, not about border expansion.
It can be both. I asked both, whichever you prefer.
Fair. I don't think we're crayon. Our population is a lot more spread out than a lot of places, at least in the Diluvian mainland, as well as in Kyradia. Maybe there are a few islands that we can get rid of that no longer serve any purpose, but really, most places are taken and inhabited. We are not a crayon.
All right. Warren, drop anything to say?
People can call us a crayon as much as they want. I don't really care. everyone's gonna think something. Like there's always gonna be haters, and the haters are always the loudest, and I don't really care. So people can say what they want.
All right, and last question, since this was asked first, I'll go with this. What are your thoughts on some sort of federal recruitment of new players, like recruitment of new players funded by the federal government? Oh, yes, go.
Right. So, one of the things I've learned through observing our close ally, Salerno, is that there really is an option for central government training of new friends and integration of new friends. Now, the current model we have is, a new friend will apply for citizen, and then, some state will take them up, and that's wonderful enough, and it works quite well. But one thing that we can have as well is we can have some players in the Imperial Federation who are more senior and are more experienced in the mechanics and guide them through. We have a model for this. This is how Salerno does it. They have some of their older guys and they have them explain the mechanics. They have them, give them tools. They have them, learn their way around the country. And we could achieve this by paying older players or even just relying on them to volunteer. But federal recruitment is your policy, right? And it's not going to subtract from our current recruitment.
All right. Any other comments on that?
Really, we don't need federal recruitment. Just like how some of the departments will fail as soon as someone else is moved in charge or goes inactive, I think a federal program of that is going to be problematic at best and end up like the Department of Economy, which is cycling between heads every other election cycle, merely because no one knows how to do it properly. This is a responsibility that needs to be left up to the states. Even within the Constitution, the federal government technically doesn't have that responsibility. It is up to the states.
All right. Finally, Doc, anything to say?
So I will be recruiting, but I also don't think that it should be the federal government's job to be recruiting, nor should it be really a question. Really, everyone should be recruiting. Every single one of you should be recruiting, just because you want the nation to grow.
All right.
Sorry, there's someone singing in the background.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
All right.
Okay, go
My
ahead.
turn now, right?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. For new friends recruitment, I feel that the states are supposed to recruit, but only a very few have actually been putting in the effort, like Hydrus, the Caridian Union, Voldy, and I'm starting to fund Malgate recruitment. The federal government should be taking a bit of a step in if I become Chancellor, because the government should be recruiting more. Like we already have in the main eye of Discord, we already have the state advertisements that new friends can look at. So why not have the why not have all states put their advertisements there, and then then not only can the states recruit, but the Imperial Federation themselves can recruit, and then those people can choose where they want to be there. If the state can't provide it, like if the state isn't recruiting new friends, they really should be assessed a bit more to see why they aren't. Like, it's one thing if they already have a ton of people, but it's another thing if they are like one or two people and they're calling themselves a state and not a territory, and they're not doing anything to recruit. But yeah, I feel like if I go into office, okay, I want to do one thing, and that is create a Department of New Friend Affairs, which would be headed by someone who's really good, and the very goal would be to train states to recruit, to fund states' recruitment efforts if really need be, but it should also be to recruit to the actual nation itself. and not just, we shouldn't just be relying on just states, because states have a bit of a record to fuck things up sometimes.
All right, so I think that's enough for the audience
am I-
questions since we've been going on.
Why
for a
am I
while.
offended by that last little bit that states tend to fuck things up?
How about we do just to end it off, maybe a closing statement if any of you want to give a final statement on why you should be voted for as Chancellor. Any of you want to go first on that? I'll take a second. Just kind of a summary of all your ideas. Oh, you have your
My
light on.
final,
Yep.
my final statement is going to be, I want to not only preserve the values that have been given by the last couple of administrations, but I want to use the good things that each administration, since I have joined at least, has used, with Asgear focusing on infrastructure, or Potato focusing more on some recruitment efforts and building certain cities and stuff. I feel like we should be collaborating those together and not just focusing on, oh, the next administration is going to do one of these things. I feel like we should be focusing on all levels and not be focusing on one at a time. Because if we don't focus on all of it, like the Imperial Federation has the willpower and the resources to become a really powerful nation. And if we don't harness this now, which is what I want, that's why I've created the Progressive Imperialist Party. That is what I stand for, is to progress the Imperial Federation to be a better and a more self-reliant and more efficient nation with a better economy and better new friends accommodations. And I feel that if I can work on that, then I feel like citizens have a better chance at having better lives and being able to open free markets and stuff. And who knows?
All right. Thank you for your statement. Let me send you down.
Whoa, what? Whoa, what the hell, Jim?
Thank you for participating. Any others? Would anyone else like to go as your final
So what,
statement?
am I in like a stasis pod till the election?
Yes.
Evolution, you can go
Yeah,
first.
yes, you are. Volution, would you like to give your final statement?
All right, so John and I, we're running because we have the motivation to be able to do some work on these projects. We need you to elect us to give us, the motivation and the support that we need to be able to have the energy to be able to go all the way to the end. So with your guys' help, if you vote us into office, then we could accomplish all of our goals if we all work together.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, too. Goodbye. Warren, drop any final words before you get sent? Yeah.
Mostly that this is probably one of the most consequential elections that we will have in quite some time. There's unfortunately a bit of a problem with the Chancellor evolution, which I believe that he has a bit of a conflict of interest. I think he'll lead us down a dangerous path. I think Doc is fine, but utterly misguided in his principles. I don't really know if there's a path forward. That's all I
Alright.
really have to say.
Thank you, Chris. Oh, got sent down with a friend. Alright, well, all the candidates have fallen in the hole. Well, thank you everyone for attending.